at 7 o'clock, it's time to begin our regularly scheduled city council meeting. Let the roll call show that we are all here. This time I'd ask you to rise to recite the pledge to the flag with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome. The first thing on our agenda after that then is an annual Camp Ripley presentation by the Colonel. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Colonel Troy Fink, Garrison Commander, Camp Ripley. Do I scroll this thing? Yes, I do. Yes, sir. So Camp Ripley's mission hasn't changed year over year. It's pretty consistent in terms of what we do on the installation. So, and I just really try to foster the positive community relations that we have with all of the different communities across the region here. So that stays the same. Some of our leadership, Major General Sean Dinky remains as the Adjutant General, a 2-star general. What did change is his Command Sergeant Major, Jason Ross, replaced Command Master Sergeant Lisa Erickson as the CSEL at the state level. The 34th Infantry Division leadership also changed, both the officer and the Command Sergeant Major. Brigadier General Joe Sharkey replaced Major General Charles Kemper as the Commanding General for the 34th, and then his Command Sergeant Major Mark Dempsey replaced Command Sergeant Major Matthew Erickson. Moving down one more tier, you have the Camp Ripley leadership, myself as the Garrison Commander. I will be retiring here come June, so my Deputy Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Ball, will be taking over for me starting 1 June. And then we did recently replace Command Sergeant Major Ryan Hofstad with Command Sergeant Major Chad Turner. The economic impact that Camp Ripley has in the surrounding area, you can kind of take a gander at those numbers. We have dramatically kind of increased with the number of dollars that we spend through construction and modernization on the installation. So that is kind of the biggest jump from last year when we met. And then obviously some of the education in terms of the dollars that we spend. We bring in a lot of Compo 1, which is active duty, to come to Camp Ripley and train through our Regional Training Institute. So that's a big positive for us as well. Location hasn't changed. Camp Ripley is still smack dab in the middle of the state of Minnesota. Still bordered by 3 counties, Morrison, Cass, and Crow Wing. Still a level 2 training center. Again, the only really difference there, there are 5 different levels of training centers, level 1 being the largest. The only difference between a level 1 and a level 2 is that a level 1 can mobilize units off of their base. Some of the accomplishments and events, I'm just going to highlight the second bullet on the slide. Camp Ripley over the last year remains pretty busy. We scored number 2 as a training center across the nation in terms of our activities and our throughput. And I anticipate 2026 will be very similar to that, if not number 1, if we can achieve that. So, some of the construction that involves that $60 million on the previous slide, Area 5 remains to be one of my priorities on the installation. And again, this is really just a 2-battalion set of facilities that provides year-round operational facilities and sleeping quarters for the soldiers. And you can kind of see some of the other things that are in progress and ongoing. If you're ever on Camp Ripley, you notice there's always something under construction. So that is a that is a good thing in terms of modernization. Also, with construction is the museum. Again, this is well underway and on schedule. Obviously, we are working closely with the museum board of directors and the executive director, Randall Dietrich, on a regular basis to ensure that this is still scheduled to have a grand opening in September. There may be a few soft openings that will occur, and that will probably just be invite only. So different mayors from the area might be invited and different things like that. So you get a little bit of a private tour before the grand opening. But we are excited about that project. This is really the meat and potatoes of the update in terms of what we're doing training-wise throughout the summer. You can see April, May, and June is probably going to be the loudest part of the summer with all the artillery units coming in. But we do stay relatively busy July, August, and September with all of our tanks and Bradley gunnery that will be occurring the remainder of the summer. And then you can see some of the other activities, youth camp, snowplow training, different things like that. So we stay pretty busy. Prescribed burns is something that we look at every year, and it's kind of a routine thing for us to maintain the training areas for the training center. This year we plan to burn about 15,000 acres. We are about 40% of that right now currently. So there are still a few opportunities for us to still burn. But we will obviously notify the public on the Camp Ripley Facebook page and Instagram page that we're doing this ahead of time, so everybody is aware that occurs. There is a little misconception, I think, out there recently. Prescribed burns and wildfires are two different categories. Prescribed burns are burns that we actually start ourselves. Wildfires are either created through a training activity and or just automatically starts on fire for whatever reason. If you can imagine impact zones with a lot of duds and unexploded ordnance, that sometimes will create a wildfire for us. However, we have all the equipment, we have all of the trained personnel to respond and react to all of the fires accordingly. Some of our community outreach, again, these are pretty routine for us year over year. The things and the employees of Camp Ripley participate in. We're pretty proud of our community outreach and what we do in the communities. We live here, we work here, and so we take a lot of pride in that. The environmental program, again, this is really kind of an overarching program that is award-winning. The prescribed burns and some of that stuff falls underneath the environmental program. There are a number of awards on the top right quadrant of this slide that depict all of the years that our environmental team has won awards for different categories. And then obviously the Sentinel Landscape and the REVI program, which is really on the next slide, showing you the buffer zone around Camp Ripley in terms of what we try to keep the encroachment onto the training base. That helps with noise reduction and different things like that. And we are still over 40,000 acres enrolled into this program, again, a federal program. So it just kind of gives you an idea of around Camp Ripley here on the areas that are enrolled, shaded in green. Our state partners, pretty consistent here. There is one small adjustment with these partners is with the HSEM. They have recently moved off of Camp Ripley back to Minneapolis office. And then the State Patrol kind of took over the space that they had in the emergency management facility on the base. But we still continue to partner with the Minnesota DNR and the Minnesota State Patrol. They operate their academies on the installation every year. And in the Minnesota DOT partnership, we have, over the last probably 4 to 5 years, have taken them on to do their driver's training for snowplow training. Support to civil authorities, this process has not changed. It stays pretty consistent in state statutes. So there's an incident that occurs in the community, whatever that may be, that call comes into the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office cannot handle it. They call the HSEM. HSEM then leans on the governor to activate the Minnesota National Guard to support all of the civilian authorities in all of these types of activities or tasks. Soldier and family programs, we've got a lot of resources on the installation. Again, I ask that if anybody knows a veteran or a family member of a veteran that needs resources or support, to reach out to these points of contact, and they can help with a variety of different situations or issues that they may be having. And then the safety brief. So unexploded ordnance, it does happen. It is on the installation. Like I mentioned with some of the wildfires. We did have recently a call come through. There was a resident in Crow Wing County that had called, I think, the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office then reached out to us, and we deployed the EOD team to this residence. They had an old Vietnam hand grenade that was found in a cardboard box. I'm not sure if it was an old war trophy, what it was, but we ended up taking that and taking care of that for that resident in Crow Wing. But again, if you see it and you don't know what it is, I ask that you do not pick it up, you do not touch it. You call 911 if it's off of the base. If it is on the base, I ask you to call my public safety or my range operations team, and the phone numbers are there. And that concludes my update, subject to dialogue or questions from anyone.
Council, questions of the colonel? Anybody in the audience have a question you'd like to ask?
Any of your ordinances go off during your burn?
They do. They do.
So you keep a distance?
Absolutely. So the impact zones, there isn't personnel allowed inside of the impact zone unless you are a level 2 trained individual. And those are very far and few between. Mostly my range control personnel are level 2 trained to walk into an impact zone. But otherwise, we try to steer clear of that area as much as possible. So our firefighters, they stay on the outside of the impact zones, always.
So if our firefighters are overwhelmed, do they call you in to assist you?
Well, there are my team. If we have more issues, we will definitely call local fire departments to come and assist us.
I'm talking about outside your perimeter, if there's a out of control fire.
We do respond to mutual aid fires and ambulance, so we do help. And we do get quite a few calls actually throughout the year. Good questions.
Anybody else?
Yes, thank you. All right.
Good luck in your retirement.
Yes.
It's been nice to associate with you.
Absolutely.
And,
If you're free on Saturday, June 6th, come on to Camp Ripley and you can witness the change of command and retirement ceremony.
will there be cake?
There will be. Thanks again, Mayor.
Second thing, Brad, the Dave Nyman Source Water Protection Award.
Recently, Minnesota Rural Water Association informed the city that it is the recipient of the organization's 2026 Dave Devian Source Water Protection Award. This award is provided annually. It recognizes individuals, public water systems, and organizations that have shown long-term commitment, initiation, leadership, and participation in activities that have resulted in the protection or improvement of those, their source water. I've just put this on the agenda so that we can give public recognition of this award and publicly thank the individuals responsible for the award, which happens to be the Public Works Department, particularly Trevor Thompson, Assistant City Engineer. You have the award in front of you. Just want to thank those that are involved to doing what they're doing and give recognition that it's being recognized at a state level. So,
Great job, Trevor and your people. I did win on this battle. It's quite an honor, actually, so I appreciate the good work and long hard work. Okay, additions or changes to the agenda, Brad?
we have two additions, Your Honor. Both are on the consent. The first one is to approve the appointments of 6 individuals as seasonal park attendants. And the second one is to approve the purchase of easements for parcels along County Road 48, 6 of them in relationship to the County 48 Trail Project.
Okay. So we're adding those on there, I don't see them on there.
Yeah, they're not on there, they're very last minute additions.
I got you. So we'll cover that when we get there then. Okay. Is that it on that?
That is all the revisions or additions to the
Okay.
agenda.
The next thing is public comments. Anybody that has something you'd like to address us about that's not on the agenda, we would entertain those. Give us your name, address.
My name is Steve Schmidt. I'm on Timberlane Drive. Baxter resident. Passing that down. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. As a resident of Baxter and a member of the Visual Quality Advisory Committee for the Overpass project, I've been thinking a great deal about how we present Baxter to the thousands of people that pass through our community every day. With the possibility of stamping our brand on a new overpass, we have a unique moment to consider not just the structure itself, but the identity that it carries. Our current slogan, "A Growing Community," served its purpose when it was chosen. It reflected who we were at that time, but as Baxter has evolved, so is the way that people experience our city. We are in many ways the front door to Lakes Country, funneling visitors from southern and central Minnesota into the pines, lakes, and wildlife of the North Woods. We're also a place people stop for supplies, shopping, and services before heading deeper into the region. Because of this, I've long felt that Baxter truly serves as the gateway to the north. It captures both our geography and our broader role in the region. As we consider branding the overpass, this feels like the right moment to revisit our slogan and ensure it reflects who we are today. Alongside this, I've also created some updated logo renderings, which I pass out to you. They keep the elements that we all value, the trees, water, and the sun, but present them in a more modern, cohesive way. Our current logo has served us well, but like the slogan, it may no longer reflect the image that we want to project. I urge the council to take up the matter of considering the city slogan and the city logo at your next working meeting. With the overpass project moving forward, I think we have a rare opportunity to refresh our identity in a way that honors our past, while also positioning Baxter for the future.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward. Anybody else?
Dave Lang, I live on Cherrywood, and I got a couple things I want to address. I went for a walk on Cherrywood. I haven't been able to go back there. You know how I've been kind of fighting for that trail in there, and I finally got a chance to go for a long walk, and I noticed you took the rail fence down. And I don't know if I owe you thanks or apology or both, because I haven't been there, so I didn't know when you took it down. But does that mean we've got access to the lake in the winter? anybody know?
Though, that fence was not taken down by the city, that would have been done by the property owner, and to this point, we do not have public access from the point that you're referencing.
Okay. Because I thought if that was the case, that it was open to us, it'd be good to choke it off and eliminate the problem we had before, people driving cars and trucks out there. So just to eliminate, so snowmobiles or skiers stay on the trail instead of embarking. And I'll go talk to the neighbor and see what his intentions are. But I just wanted to bring that up in case I was overrated, you had taken the rail fence down, and I didn't want to be a jerk forever, so. The other thing is, on Cherrywood, they plan on resurfacing that, correct? This year. And on my street, starts at the church, goes around the corner where the Evangelical Road goes in. And when Tom's Backhoe first put that road in, they had constructed those ditches to regulation. And then when they put the dirt in, Tom's Backhoe just filled them in level. So then all that water that was coming off those roads went down the road, and that's why the road pools in at the bottom. And wherever water pools, that's where the tar is compromised. If it soaks in water, then your tar is gonna crystallize and chip out like it's doing now. So I was gonna make a move that we should fix those ditches back to the way they were supposed to be. So the water, rainwater and everything goes into those ditches and trickles down like it's supposed to. Because that's the reason for the buildup. And I did my ditch, is kind of over regulation, but it had to be ready for all that water. My neighbor wanted his drive done, or his yard done, and I said, well, we'll have to see what goes on. I noticed a realtor was going around doing appraisals today, so I don't know what all that was about, if they were going to, come over further, or if there was going to be a shoulder on the road. I haven't noticed that. But on some cases, they didn't put enough gravel shoulder on the road, so the tarmac had busted off. Especially on the outside corners, you have to kind of tilt it up a little more, so all that centrifugal force that goes onto that corner doesn't separate and move that tar out. That's where you get your cracks. And then the other thing, when they tar them roads, where they overlap from one side to the other, they're supposed to overlap extreme and build a pile there. So then when that steamroller comes, it's supposed to roll down into that groove to make sure that that groove is compressed and filled. If you notice, I think they've been saying good enough, but we use 2-inch caulk to take care of it. But from what I've seen others do it, in the big city, they leave about a 6-inch pile where the two roads meet and where the seam is. And then that steamroller comes and it pushes that in there, and you never have any problem anywhere else. And Glenwood Drive is a big example of that. And any of these roads where you see it cracking, we're always seeing cracks. And I don't want to tell them how to do their job, but I think they're not doing their job, so they have to be held accountable. And I don't like seeing our money going down the tubes, and if I can help, I'll do it. If I have to tell them how to do their job, I'll do it. Well, this isn't how they do it in St. Cloud, because I noticed that on Glenwood Drive, they did it again on Glenwood Drive, and it's already parting and cracking. And they didn't didn't put enough, camber in the road, so the water doesn't run off, so it pools on. And right there, that's where your tar surface can be compromised, so every car that drives on that is gonna bring that down, and then that divot will just get deeper till it cracks out. So we're spending our money on a procedure that's going to have to be redone, and that's not why we do it. You know, the best way to take care of roads is to do it right in the first place. And so, I don't know what kind of insurance, I noticed they came back and did Glenwood Drive after I reported it in. And, they took the sticks out of the tar and they patched it pretty good. And I don't want them to do the road if they're gonna use a cold machine. Because on Glenwood Drive and Mary Street, they use a cold machine. And what happens is, it doesn't heat up the tar enough, and the aggregate will hang up on the blade, and it'll just screed the new tar off. Because your rocks are about 3/4 inch, so that means your screen isn't getting any higher than 3/4 inch. So they drag them rocks. But then I noticed as that screen warms up, it gets smoother and better. So, they should have the machine hot when they do it.
Okay.
So,
And your comments are duly noted.
okay.
Thank you.
Is there gonna be a meeting on that to go forward, do you think?
Well, we've got a couple meetings. I don't, you haven't gotten the notices or?
No. No. But, I wanted to come in and
No.
just make sure they do it right, otherwise not at all.
Okay.
And that, those ditches have to be done before they do tar.
Right.
And then, are they gonna make the road wider at all on the south side?
I don't, you know,
Cause that's where that, realtor guy was going more on the house on the south side.
you know, we had all the neighbors in, we went through all that, and there's follow-up paperwork on that the staff can certainly give you what's being proposed.
I was sick one of those days, so I don't know if that's
Okay.
or not.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else have comments that are not on the agenda? All things that are not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward with the consent agenda. The following items are considered non-controversial by staff and are recommended to be read and passed in one motion. Any council person, a staff citizen, or meeting attendee can request one or more of the items be pulled from the consent agenda. And the item will be pulled and addressed immediately after the passage of the consent agenda. Otherwise, the following items will be passed in one motion. Number 3, approve the city council work session minutes from March 17th, 2026. Number 4, approve city council minutes from March 17th, 2026. Number 5, approve the payment of bills and finance report. Number 6, approve the issuance of an on-sale intoxicating liquor and on-sale Sunday liquor license for the Aztec Mexican Bar and Grill. Number 7, approve the healthcare savings plan agreements between the LELS Local 312, Teamsters Local 320, and non-union employees in Minnesota State Retirement System for the period of 2026 to 2027. Number 8, approve the software as a service agreement with Eckberg Lamers for the Policies 360 subscription. Number 9, approve the Quality Flow Systems Inc. equipment proposal in the amount of $58,650 for the lift station 18 control panel, pumps, accessories, and hatches. Number 10, approve a budget transfer to purchase microchlor cells from the water treatment plant. Number 11, approve the budget amendment for the streets 1-ton dually truck with signboard in the additional amount of $6,478.74 for a total revised budget of $88,478.74. Number 12, approve the Ureta, 3-year service contract in the amount of $10,580 for the aeration system and backwash blower. Number 13, adopt resolutions 2026-013 and 2026-014, approving the preliminary and a final plat of Veterans First Edition and PUD General and final plat, and ordinance to 2026-002, approving a rezone from C2 regional commercial to PUD planned unit development for property located on the north side of Novotny Road, west of 7180 Novotny Road. Number 14, approve the Timber Ridge Baxter Senior Living Development Agreement. Number 15, approve the Timber Ridge Baxter Senior Living Construction Repair and Maintenance Agreement for sanitary sewer and water main. Number 16, approve the permanent access easement for the Timber Ridge Baxter Senior Living Development. Number 17, approve the stormwater facilities maintenance agreement with access rights and covenants for the Timber Ridge Baxter Senior Living. Number 18, accept Memorial Park bench donation of $2,370 for a new memorial bench and approve the engraving of proposed bench location. Number 19, approve the appointments to the seasonal position of park attendant. I'm gonna pull that, and then, what was the next one, Brad?
Is approve the purchase of easements for the 6 parcels in relationship to the 2026 County Road 48 Trail Connection Project.
Okay, number 20, a motion to accept, approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second. And I, just for total transparency, I have a grandson on this staff recommendation, so I'm gonna abstain. So I need a motion to approve the employees.
I will move to approve. Oh, second.
Need to vote on the consent agenda.
Oh, you didn't do that.
We have not voted on the consent.
Did somebody make the motion?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Now, we'll go back and.
Now,
Motion to approve that seasonal.
yeah, I'll approve that the seasonal.
Okay.
And
Still
I will
in the
second.
number. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Sorry about that. Number 19, Trident Development LLC, Ridge of Baxter Senior Living Housing Tax Increment Financing Request. Brad?
Yeah, earlier this year, council had an application from Trident Development seeking tax increment financing for a proposed multifamily project in the northwest portion of town. At that time, the council gave permission to hire Ehlers and Associates to do their due diligence and determine eligibility. Tonight, we have Shane from Ehlers and Associates here to provide council with their findings and a recommendation for the council's consideration.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Shane Rudling again with Ehlers. Nice to see you all. As Brad mentioned, there was an application for tax increment financing, and one of the things that we do a lot at Ehlers, and myself personally, is review those for various communities across Minnesota. I do some work in Wisconsin as well, so this is an area that we're very experienced in. But you've got a project there. Tonight we'll go through just a little bit about the project itself. We'll talk about the financial review and the process. We'll talk about the development sources and uses, the performer review itself, the tip request. We'll talk about a look back revision that we're recommending, and we talked about with the developer, and we'll talk about the recommendation. That's all included in the memo that we have in the packet as well. So this slide deck in my presentation tonight will roughly follow that memo. So there's not a lot of, or there is a lot of intentional overlap between the two. So with that, you've got an 80-unit project there. It includes a number of assisted living and memory care units. The ALs and the EWs are in the table to the right, correspond to those names: elderly waiver, assisted living, and MC is memory care. So you've got a mix of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedrooms across all those various different types of uses, all adding up to about 80 units. Because 20% of the units would be affordable at those making less than 50% of area median income for the area, this would qualify as a housing tax increment financing district. And the TIF district allows some of the taxes that are paid for by the developer for the project to be reinvested in the project itself. In the housing TIF district in particular, you can take that TIF money and in a way recycle it and help the project happen. It pays for the cost of the affordability. And a lot of these projects these days are just not financeable because of persistently high interest rates, or a lot higher than they were years ago, as well as construction costs that have outpaced inflation considerably. So the process here, it's a flow chart from left to right, although my arrow doesn't show up there really on the screen, but anyway, obviously we're going left to right here. We've got a TIF application, we do a fair amount of financial modeling, and we get into discussions and question and answers with both the developer, and Ellers works with their city staff to come to agreeable terms, which we're recommending tonight. If the council decides to move forward with the project, we would then start drafting a TIF agreement, different than the development agreement that you have on the consent agenda. This is the subsidy agreement. Some communities do call it the development agreement, which makes it all very confusing. We'll call it a TIF agreement here tonight to keep them all straight. It takes about 45 to 60 days to get to the consideration of a TIF plan. Culminates in a public hearing, another meeting like this, where we have a hearing and you consider the approval of a TIF plan. Of course, then construction is about 18 to 24 months. We then issue the TIF note, which is fundamentally the obligation that we would that lay out in the TIF agreement. And then later on, we do a stabilization look back, and I'll get into that here in a second. And again, TIF assistance is just a gap filler, right? There's oftentimes a gap in these projects these days where you just don't have enough sources to pay for the uses, and TIF is a piece of that puzzle. This is about a $26.6 million project financed by a pretty standard mortgage and equity 70-30 split. It's pretty typical these days. Sometimes that's actually a little bit higher. So getting it done at 30% equity is a pretty good deal. Equity is your little down payment. It's like buying a house, you got to put some equity in. In this situation, you're putting in 30% in. And uses are spread out there over the acquisition costs, which are a tad high on a per unit basis, but there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built along with the project. So I'm not concerned about that being $27,000 per unit on the acquisition price there. The one thing I'll point out here on this graph, because I've got it up, is the developer's fee. Actually, there's a rounding there. It's 5.6% of the developer's fee. That's a tad high. So when we go through and do kind of stress test the performa, we'll modify a number of these things to make sure that we think the TIF is warranted, and potentially come up with a different number than what the developer requested, and then ultimately come to you guys and say, hey, we think that the project needs this amount of money to move forward. So just a high level review of the performa review itself. We look at the development cost per unit. That's $330,000 per unit. That's a lot of money per unit, but that's what it costs these days, especially when you've got some different types of units with a senior living project like this, and also a decent number of 2-bedroom units. If you're building all studios, obviously that number's going to come down. Studios 1, 2s, and 3s. Studios and 1s and 2s in this project is you get over $300,000. That's just the way that the world is these days. Again, the developer's fee. Again, when we do our stress testing, we kick that down to usually that is between 3 and 5%. So it's just a tish over what we typically like to see. Operating costs in this type of project at $36,000 per unit per year is really, quite high as an apartment, but for a senior living project, this is what we see. We just had one of these in another greater Minnesota community that was right in that range too, so we feel like that's a pretty good number. Again, it's really high because you've got memory care assisted living and elderly folks living there. Mortgage and equity accounts, again, 30% equity is typical. Rent with services, again, this is a service project as well as an apartment project, and so again, we say okay, but with a look back. What I mean by that is the cost of providing those services and the cost charged to the tenants is more variable than a standard apartment project, which is one of the reasons why we're recommending a look back, and we talked to the developer about that. What that does then is allows us to go after they've rented the place up, they know what their revenues are, and they know what their expenses are. We can then adjust the TIF if they're making more profit than we're anticipating today. And so that's a check on the TIF amount that we come back and do about a year after they open. So look back. We adjusted the inflation on rent and expenses, that changes the whole profitability profile. We're looking at a mortgage rate of about 6.25%. Tip and property taxes, the developer's original request was 90% of the tip for 20 years, totaling $3 million. We adjusted that down considerably because we got a value from the county assessor, estimating the project coming in a lot less value than the developer originally projected. And so we're almost a third in what the developer calculated on property taxes per year versus what we calculate today. Nobody can say exactly what the taxes are going to be, obviously, until the assessor actually goes out there and looks at the project, looks at the finances, and puts a number on it. But that's why we rely on the assessors, because they're ultimately going to be doing that when it's constructed. So ultimately, when you make all those adjustments and with the recommended tip, the financial performance is within metrics. Again, with that look back that we would do after stabilization with a 16% hurdle rate, if it's more than that, then we start adjusting the tip down and potentially to zero. We don't anticipate that we're going to be doing adjustments, but you never know. We did do one again in another Greater Minnesota community where we did a substantial adjustment to the tip amount based on the look back. So these things sometimes kick in and sometimes they don't. It all depends on what the market is for rent, services, and what all that costs, and that's why we look at actuals. So look back is a good check on those things that we can do later. So with that, the recommendation is a TIF note principal amount, so that's a today value of $1.1 million, financed at 6%, financed by 90% of the TIF generated by the project, over an up to 20-year term. What I mean by that is it could pay off earlier than they often do, so that maybe it's only 15 years. And if we get to that principal amount, based on those 90% annual payments per year, or biannual, I guess they go up, but it's possible and almost likely that it'll pay off before the 20 years. And so you guys could then decertify the district at that point. It's a pay-as-you-go obligation. What we mean by that is that there isn't any other obligations for the city to use general fund or any other funds except for the TIF generated by the project to pay this TIF note down. So there's no other obligation. You're not borrowing, you're not obligating general fund or any other revenues. This is simply the revenue generated by the project itself. This is a nuance to land use. There's a property tax class rate that was changed dramatically in 2023 that allows a developer to request a lower class rate for units that are affordable. And that's called the 4D1 property tax class rate, which basically means that you generate about 20% of the taxes on an affordable unit versus a market rate unit. The class rate is 0.25 for the 4D1 class rate versus a regular market rate for a project is 1.25. So again, in Minnesota, you've got value times class rate equals tax capacity, and then the tax capacity is what your levy is spread out across. And so we do that on projects like this when we're committing TIF based on an estimate that we're doing today to make sure that TIF is going to pay out and that the class rates aren't going to be lowered. And so we have that restriction in there. Do you have a question there?
Is that permanent or just during the TIF repayment period?
It would just be during the TIF repayment period. Yep.
So once it's paid back,
They could in theory then go, if in 20 years that class rate exists, they could do that. That class rate has moved around considerably over the past six years or so. They keep adjusting. It used to be a 2 hurdle rate for a portion of that affordable value was at one class rate, and then the rest of it was at another class rate, and they moved that number around quite a bit. Again, in 2023, they just, and all the other housing provisions that year, they lowered taxes on affordable units considerably. And then the look back we're recommending, as I discussed. So, with that, that's a summary of what we were at today. I think there's a resolution in your packet for consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council questions?
Are there any supplement options for those apartments?
Sorry, what do you mean by supplements?
Insurance
Well, the business would pay, if the corporation, income taxes on their profits for sure, yes.
Divided amongst the tenants.
Well, the tenants pay rent and they pay for services. That's on the revenue side, and then on the expense side, the developer has to pay, or the owner then has to pay for all the things. So obviously your revenues need to be higher than expenses if you don't have a business. So they bake all that into the rent that they're charging and the services that are providing, they charge them for it.
So the rent is 36,000, and then you have separate levels of expense and then on top of that.
I don't want to get too far into the weeds in that context. That's questions that should be directed to the developer, the Trident Development. What Shane has been hired to do is to look at their pro formas to determine from a real estate tax perspective, not necessarily the corporate taxes on a state or federal level in that regard.
Yeah, I'm just trying to corner down what all is,
You didn't show the rents on your chart, did you?
That's right, I didn't show the rents. The reason is because rent, it's not traditional rent. You're paying for rent and then you're paying for services.
Right, I'm just,
Yes.
I think you saw a number up there, 36,000, that's not what the rent is on that unit.
well, rent and services are two different things.
Neither one of those are on
You have
this chart.
stages services.
Neither one of those are on this chart. Right.
I was just wondering if you forgot what was there.
Yeah. So Brad, can you take us back to number 19 there? Explain what.
Yeah, I'll just indicate that a representative from Trident is in the audience tonight. In that context, Mr. Lang, if you do have further questions regarding development, I would defer that to Mr. Fink. If there are no questions that council has of Shane or staff at this point in time, we'd be looking for council to adopt resolution 2026, which authorizes the preparation of a TIF district plan. That resolution was included in your packet, and I believe Shane or Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, the tentative goal is to have the TIF hearing on June 2nd. So,
I'll make that motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 20, adopt resolution 2026-024, declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering preparation of proposed assessments for the 2026 Clearwater Road, North Window area, Brentwood Circle Street, utility improvements, 4068.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. There's two resolutions tonight in front of you. The first one is the resolution declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering preparation of the proposed assessment. There were multiple steps ahead of this. Provided quite a bit of information, or we provided quite a bit of information in the RCA. Is your intent for me to walk through some of that, or is it more of a Q&A session? What is the council's intent here? Just like me to walk through the RCA?
Questions about that, Councilor?
Neil, why don't you just kind of peruse over the details of the bid opening and your
All right.
findings?
So the previous council step was bringing the plan forward for advertisement for bid and approval to advertise and approving the plan on February 4th. And staff wanted to make the note that at that time, the information that was presented to council was staying consistent with the feasibility report budget. And after that time, we opened bids on March 10th with R.L. Larson. The apparent low bidder, R.L. Larson, had a bid amount of $6.3 million, which was significantly higher than the construction budget that was identified in the feasibility report. Through the course of the last couple weeks, public works staff, administration, and finance staff worked through different details regarding the project and the bid. There's a chart in the RCA identifying the primary items that were impacting this overall budget. So that's on the first page of the RCA. I'll just walk through those for council's awareness. So the dewatering item specifically on this project was estimated in the feasibility report at roughly $250,000, and after bids were opened, the dewatering costs came back over $800,000 for the project as a whole, which is a significant portion of this budget, $600,000 difference. The lift station itself, including the lift station and a few items that were added to it with trees, fence, and gate, was roughly $130,000. There were several street items that were either added or bid prices reflected higher costs, and that's a roughly $300,000 impact to the budget. And additional water-related costs on Brentwood Drive. Additional engineering costs after evaluating the design contract and the construction contract in the amount of roughly $125,000. And that kind of gets us to the overall budget of, and then in the second page of the RCA, there's a comparison chart between where we stand today and where the feasibility report had the project standing, and there's a roughly $1.2 million project budget difference from that feasibility report. There's other information regarding assessments, and then where those are at. And one item that I believe that us as staff wanted to discuss was largely the bidding climate that we're in at this time. The higher costs are more representation of those costs not necessarily being properly identified in the earlier stages of the project. The other bids throughout the area are not coming in largely over the engineer's estimate. So that's a point of that we as a team wanted to make, that there's some items that were not necessarily properly accounted for earlier on, and it's not as big of an impact with the current bidding climate.
So that $1.2 million over, that's all city costs, right?
At this point it is, with the assessments being fixed, that would all fall under the umbrella of city costs, correct?
So in general, like, this isn't a trend for all construction costs, there were just a few key items that were kind of mis-budgeted or caught people off guard that are, you know, kind of talking about deep watering. Like, what happens if it doesn't cost that much to deep water it, you know?
Correct, so largely when you're bidding, the bidder puts some risk into it.
Yeah.
In this case, dewatering is a lump sum item. So whatever the contract price is, that's what's going to be paid. It's a fair statement. In some cases, you could scale back and do things differently, but in the case of dewatering, that's the cost. If the project, if the contract is awarded, that's the cost of that particular work.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was a pretty good bidding environment. So we just did a $5 million
was largely what we discussed as a whole, as well as other projects in the area. We're not seeing significant price increases based off of road events, things of that nature.
So put another way, I guess, like on the dewatering situation, it was just a miscalculation or the people doing the work looked at the same piece of work and said that 250 is not what it would be anywhere near what we would, it's just I guess a disagreement between what was put into the feasibility and the facts on the ground more than anything.
Sure, so part of this all starts out as feasibility is very early in the process, not a lot of additional work, or just, it's a much, it's a snapshot in time early in the project. At that time, dewatering, 250,000 in that ballpark. There's soil borings, there's work being done. The bidders themselves actually, in many cases, when there's smoke of potential concerns, there's several lakes nearby, they go out and do some of their own field work. And just for your awareness, that it wasn't just the low bidder, all of the bids for this particular item were quite high. So it's, as more is learned, they hone in on that number. Did that answer your question?
So you maybe just answered my question, but we got so much going on, I don't remember, we haven't accepted these bids yet.
Correct. This is the clearing cost to be assessed, ordering the hearing. Further down the road is contract award.
Okay, so probably fuel, would it, based on what you just said, would it do any good to rebid it? If all those bids are coming in like that anyway, probably not, or is that an option?
It doesn't, realistically, multiple bids, and this always happens, but there's multiple bids close, and then there's a few of them that are significantly higher. We don't think that would, if you want to rebid, you wait for different circumstances, a different year, or you make changes to the project. There's really, to be straightforward, there's not significant changes you can make to the project. You can scale back a few potential improvements, but what we put out there to build is basically what we want to build.
Could come back worse.
Yes, but
It's a bummer.
Well, the bid is also went with the prices. The feasibility study was just a guess. And
Right.
it didn't work out.
See, there's some pretty low spots in that area. Doesn't surprise me that deep water you bumped up a little bit.
But the flip of that coin would be that they should know that. I mean, that fellow sat right here and said he tried to dig a hole for his flagpole to fill it up with water. That's pretty obvious.
Look at that house where they built the basement above ground and they built it.
Yeah. So what do we want to do, Carl?
So in relationship to the prices, or the bid coming in differently than what was in the feasibility report, Finance Department has provided you with, which is included in the packet, potential sources to make up the cost of that approximately 1.2 million in that regard. Just wanted to reference that has been identified. Within that does indicate kind of that with the higher costs, we would, as part of the CIP process, have to reevaluate the timing of future street, sewer, and water projects to make sure that we stay within our financial means. So,
Based on what I've seen, I'm in the camp of, I would, at the end of this statement, make a motion to approve the resolution here tonight, knowing that the assessments are fixed for these residents, so they're not going to see a massive jump. And we've got a pathway forward to get this done. Next year gives us no more certainty than right now. 37% of this project comes from sales tax, which may be gone next year. So now we're 37% higher in local cost. So although nobody wants to see a bid come in like this, I think this is as good as it's going to get, or the most certain it's going to get for now. Maybe I will hold off on making the motion in case there's any other conversation to be had.
I have nothing to add other than I would make the motion as well. I would agree.
I would be in agreement. It's such a huge project, and it covers so much area. And we've worked hard on it. The landowners have worked hard on it. And to our point that we just made, it's so low in that area, and you know that water is affecting Red Sand there. It really is a benefit really to all of us in the city to get that done. It seems like, it's terrible. It's really a disappointment, especially when the big road project through Brainerd came in whole. I think we were all thinking it was great, but it wasn't. So that was very disappointing. But my gut feeling is, I don't know how to better say it, but it seems like we're probably into it too far to throw away. And Zach's making some good comments about exactly what might happen next year too. There's probably as many unknowns as there is right now. So I would agree with, like it or not, we should probably move forward.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I'll make the motion now to adopt resolution 2026-024.
Connie, a second there. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Number 21. Resolution 2026-25, calling for a hearing of proposed assessment for the Clearwater projects we just were talking about.
I'll take care of that. In relationship with the resolution that you just passed, the next step in the approval process is to set the assessment hearing. The RCA that is in front of you sets that for May 4th at 6 p.m. here at City Hall. We do have a second option if the majority of the council cannot be in attendance for May 4th. And that second option is Tuesday, April 28th at 6 p.m. Looking for the council to adopt resolution for what is being recommended as May 4th. The alternative would be is to revise the resolution to be on April 28th.
Thoughts, ideas?
I can make May 4th work.
I can as well. Two.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's what he said.
And this is the assessment hearing. At the conclusion of the hearing, the council does not take any vote. A meeting thereafter would be the resolution adopting the assessment roll and to accept the bids and award the contract. Do you know offhand what that tentative date would be?
We set that on the following evening, so the May 5th council meeting.
Okay.
Need a motion on that, Brad?
We need a motion to adopt resolution 2026-025.
Make the motion to approve or adopt resolution 2026-025.
Motion by Talbot.
Second.
Second by Leslie, all in favor?
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Neil.
Mayor and Council, the next three items on the agenda all relate to the Five Below project. At your last council meeting, the city council moved forward with denial of the setback variances that were on the table. Pursuant to Minnesota state law, we're coming back forward with work from the city attorney to for the council to consider resolution 2026-027, which establishes a resolution formally denying those setback variances based on the vote at your last meeting. So that's what that item is. Also, just to relay information from Five Below, they understand the action that's taken place and they still want to move forward with the site. So they've made changes to their plans to narrow out the project and still proceed. So the next two items relate to approval of the conditional use permit. And then the escrow agreement so that they can move forward. Their plan is to move forward without the variances. So 2026-027 is what's on the agenda right now, and that's to deny the two setback variances.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Cross, second by Tabbitt. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 23.
Yep, that's the conditional use permit for joint access, and that's 2026-028. The request is to approve that resolution.
So moved.
Motion by Liscio.
Second.
Second by Patrick. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 24.
And that's to approve the Five Below escrow agreement for inspection services and as-bills.
Move for approval.
Motion by Tabbitt. Second by Patrick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All the same sign, motion carries. Yeah, that gets us through. Yes. Look at the council comments, Connie.
One that's not necessarily related to city business, but it's quite an accomplishment, quite an accolade. Eric Bolkamp, who is a Baxter resident, his family still lives in Baxter, son of Joe Bolkamp, who's worked for the city of Baxter off and on for a lot of years. Eric is a finalist for the Hobie Baker Award, which is huge in the world of hockey. So I just wanted to recognize that because that takes years and years of hard work, and he'll know Thursday whether or not he's actually selected for that award. And I think it should be noted too that he's a junior, so he still has another year of eligibility. So congratulations to the full cap family.
Yeah, I saw that. That's a hockey family there, I'll tell you that.
I'm sure he spent many years
Yeah.
at the rink right over there
Yeah.
across from his house.
Good, thank you
Congratulations to
for
them.
bringing that up. Zach, anything?
I'd just like to follow up on the document and the commentary by Mr. Schmidt earlier. I think it's well timed and it's appropriate. I think we should at least take it up for the sake of like process as we're looking at the beautification committee. It might be time to do it anyway, but once this year passes us by, I think we're behind the eight ball in terms of getting something done with changes that way. So I would just strongly encourage us to take it up in a work session. We don't necessarily have to agree with what was offered or anything like that, but we should use it as a starting point and have that conversation.
Okay. Is that stuff being talked about in that?
We don't have to talk about it.
Okay, in your commission, okay.
Yep.
Okay, Patrick?
I'll echo the same thing. It's someone that really is involved with marketing in a business. As soon as it's pointed out, you look at the current logo and it's like, okay, maybe there's an opportunity here. So I'm just gonna echo Zach's comment.
Okay, great, thanks. Mark?
Yeah, aesthetic committee, I'm not sure beautification is the right word. But anyway, we had a good meeting. A good portion of the meeting was sitting down with the consultant and coming up with a vision statement, mission statement. So what we expected out of this, and that went pretty well. We did talk a little bit about branding The other thing we kind of talked about was there's like 3 or 4 levels of bridge aesthetics. And what is in our budget is bridge aesthetic that would relate somewhat close to the Mississippi 371 bridge. So the potential for those corner posts with some logo, I think that's kind of the start of where this logo potentially came from. Then remember that there's going to be some signage incorporated with this, and that sign, new logo would probably go on that. That signage would be a good spot for it. We did stress that one of the biggest points I think we stressed was we wanted to see a lot of landscaping. And I didn't get did you get a good feel for that? Landscaping is not part of the budget.
No, I think that just generally near the structures and things like that, I believe that there's generic landscaping or general landscaping, but beyond that, I don't believe that there was really a scope there. And Josh, you participated in the process as well, or in the meeting. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think they pretty much said they don't have anything anticipated that's a tangible amount of trees, for example. Beyond, but I think there was also some hint of conversation that if other areas came under, maybe there's an opportunity there. I think more discussion is probably needed to kind of narrow that down. That's the take I took from what we heard, but.
And the other take I got off of it was that anything we do above and beyond the standard that we picked out of this group, I'd say we went with some special lighting, or we wanted more lighting underneath the overpasses, or the pedestrian walks, or whatever. Those would not only be our costs, but our maintenance costs. So I'm not sure I picked up on that from our original conversations, but yeah, we're watching dollars. So a good group went well. Yes, went very well, I think.
That was very engaged group.
But that's what we wanted. Quite a mix of people, so that's all I have.
That's great, thank you. I don't have anything. City Administrator.
Nothing to report, Your Honor, other than we do have 2 items for closed business. The first one is to go to closed session under Minnesota Statute 13D05 for the consideration of purchase of real estate for the 5 parcels that are outlined or identified in the agenda. And then the second one is to go into closed session pursuant to 13D.03 for labor negotiations.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to close the open session and open the closed.
Second.
All in favor?